during their Katipunan ng Kabataan assemblies, youth profiling, consultation with young people, and having a bids and awards committee technical working group where young people could actually participate. Next. Local youth development councils are also quite powerful if given the chance, because they have the power, they have the capacity to hold young politicians accountable. They are mandated to monitor and evaluate the implementation of the local youth development plan and the budget that comes along with it, and so on. Next. Of course, the local youth development offices empower these young people in both, as I mentioned earlier, young people elected into office and young people in civil society. It's the local youth development offices who should be supporting them, providing capacity building. Next. And so our work with GoodGov.ph really comes from that belief that if implemented right, we could actually, widen the space for young progressive leaders to participate in local governance. And so we started by thinking about what incentives can be given to young people if given the chance. So we started the Seal of Good Youth Governance, or the SGYG program, which is inspired by the SGLG program, to really promote and sustain practices that exemplify Filipino culture. So we are basing everything on kapwa, pamamahalang pangkapwa, or kapwa governance. Next. So it's a merit-based recognition program that's not just award-giving, but also we designed it in a way that it's supposed to be a monitoring tool, so that young people could actually see where their young politicians, their youth leaders, are using the budget that they're given every year in order to champion good governance practices. Next. So I'm just going to show you very quickly why this is very important. In the Philippines, youth councils, each youth council of every barangay is given 10% of the annual barangay budget. So this is at least 500,000 pesos for the smallest barangay to up to 10 million pesos per year, depending on where the barangay is and how much income their barangay takes. That means that because of the fiscal autonomy provision of the SK Reform Law, you have young people aged 18 to 24 who directly manages this amount of money every year. And if we don't, if nobody holds them accountable, imagine where this much money would go in the hands of these young people. Next. So really, the SGYG program is about transforming absent youth governance to mature youth governance. Next slide, please. So we're going to go quickly what we've done since 2021 when we piloted this in the province of Laguna. We were able to get SKs to start having their own freedom of information portals, requests, and so on, even without a prior FOI ordinance in their localities. So SKs are doing it because their LGUs don't. Okay, next. And since then, the SGYG program has been turned into an ordinance that have been enacted in different cities and municipalities. And just like what Ma'am Malu has been talking about earlier, Pasig is really one of our champions for good youth governance. So next. So for example, among the many barangays of Pasig City, a lot of them have been awarded. And as part of the criteria that we help develop is that we require full disclosure board, social media presence, where young people can access or request information from their SKs. And we were part of the technical working group that helped really develop and later on check what these SKs have really been doing. Next. So the point is, the SK Reform Law already mandates full disclosure. It already mandates that information should be given out there. But so what, right? How does that affect young people? Well, we realized through our experience that even if you provide incentives to SK officials, there are still a lot of corrupt and incompetent SK officials. And so we realized, next slide, that what we need is we need to provide young people the power and the information we need to raise awareness about what young people can do with that information that they request through their SK officials. And so we released a primer called the Sandigan ng Kabataan, Primer on the Accountability of SK Officials. It's a Q&A guide that tells you how you can file complaints, how you can hold these corrupt SK officials accountable. And so we realized as well that young people don't read too much anymore. So next slide, we created an interactive website or a primer in order for you to just really go through the whole process of holding young public officials accountable. So it's still a prototype, but we plan to release it this June. No? And if you go through the website, it will show you step by step what are the grounds to suspend or remove SK officials and what information do you need. So if you have a right to information process already, you can request information already, we will teach you what you're gonna do with that information to hold your officials accountable. So next slide. So this is an example for that. Under the SK reform law, it's very basic. It's very simple to hold your officials accountable. If they don't attend their meetings, if they don't convene assemblies, you can already have them suspended. And what you need for that are just simply minutes of the meetings that you can request from your barangay. So a lot of people complain online, but they don't file cases, so nothing happens. Now we're empowering young people to request information, request documents, and use those documents to hold their public officials accountable. Next. So really the point here is the right to information is essential to promote accountability in youth governance. We have a lot more programs involving open governance that we're just gonna very quickly just pass through. Yeah, next. So it's called the Gen OGP program, where we want to take these initiatives from the local to the national level, and hopefully by the end of the OGP National Action Plan refresh cycle, we would have youth-centered commitments that will really bolster what we've seen from Luzon, Visayas, and from young leaders from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and turn it into policy that a lot of government agencies can hopefully institutionalize and really empower young people. So, and that includes a national campaign for the passage of the Right to Information Act. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, speakers. So our speakers have shared examples, very good examples of ordinances. Some are very successful ones, and some provide more opportunities for improvement. And also, when we speak of local governance, let's also not forget the Youth Council, which is the Sangguniang Kabataan. Now we open the floor for questions and answers. Are there questions for any of the speakers? Or comments or anything to add?
Parang lahat nakatingin sa akin. Ayan. Ayan. So I think I have two questions. No? Both of which pertain to yung pag-receive ng ating mga local lawmakers, for example, or local legislators. First is when it comes to political resistance. Kasi ang political resistance nag-evolve yan across time. For example, during the time of Rodrigo Duterte, mas talaga pag nakita lang yung salitang right, yung quote-unquote right or right, namumula na yung mata nila. No? They tend to avoid those kinds of ordinances. But now it's different. So there are more LGUs that are more receptive to FOI and RTI ordinances and resolutions, but I think there are still LGUs that are still resistant to it, no, or they're trying to delay efforts to actually have it adopted. So how do we address that in the current situation where you have a rapidly shifting political environment na, yeah, a lot of which are happening at the national level but nagtitrickle down siya at the local level. And second question is, I think this is for the speakers coming in from the youth sector, or young at heart, or young at heart. um, Normally, there's this stereotype of when young people engage in the in political decision making. So, how do we navigate that kind of situation wherein you have legislators who look down at times at young lobbyists? Sometimes they even put our competence into question. Because, for example, when we were in the Senate, when we were in the technical working groups, they not only looked, they not only downplayed, for example, like young people, they also downplayed the involvement of civil society organizations. So, parang may layers of marginalization tuloy in our political and policy advocacy. So, how do we navigate that kind of situation? Thank you.
Brian, the question on political resistance, from, we were surprised that under President Duterte there was push, really vigorous push to enact an executive order on FOI. That's why we helped. Not all the civil society groups were in agreement that we should be helping an administration that's been violating human rights. But nonetheless, the pragmatic path we took was the executive is the biggest producer of information and documents. And come to think of it, a lot more good things followed. FOI-PMO was organized. Chris Ablan and the beautiful ladies of FOI-PMO here actually hammered through the years to make it happen. FOI manuals were produced by the agency. So many awareness sessions, awareness building sessions were done. But also, I think the problem is, it's a reality that every 3 years we have new local officials. It's a reality that regime change will probably upset the tide of FOI implementation. But the bigger problem really is administrative matter. The FOI-PMO doesn't have any authority or budget or mandate to supervise ordinances. Now, I'm thinking the scenario could be if we have an FOI law, maybe things will be better. But if we don't have an FOI law, the transition issues persist. What do you do with the FOI ordinances that are not supervised or audited in terms of outputs and outcomes? What do you do with FOI ordinances that possibly do not have funding? What do you do with FOI ordinances that are not right now being audited by any agency? Maybe it should be the ILG, maybe it should be the Office of the President, but nonetheless, we have right now a lot of agencies actually invested in the EFOI project. We have a problem there also because right now the EFOI project has been orphaned for so many times in the first 3 years of the Marcos admin. So you would think there's some sea change in the tone and stress of transparency between the two presidents. But also, I think what's important is right now, because of the flood control controversy, we are seeing a new energy to push FOI. And that's why we have guarded optimism, we're telling you. We believe in the team that's implementing it. We don't know how it will be better if the law passes and what will happen to the ordinances. So I think the problem really here is to make a lot more demands on the ordinances so that they will work. We know of stories where politicians actually embrace it as their pet project because it will be good trophy or brownie points for their career. I don't think there's really real commitment. On the other hand, there are local officials who are truly, fully committed to it, and it works in some areas. Now, I won't get into the FOI manuals. That's another area that's not been audited. With the FOI manuals where exceptions have been so stretched by certain agencies, so it stumps the spirit of transparency that FOI should be, or EO2 at least, should be giving. Sorry.
Okay, so in the spectrum of the other difficulties and barriers to engaging, I think political resistance is one of the least things that I'm very concerned about. Not because I'm not afraid of that thing, but maybe through years of experience, being excluded out of the process has made me deal with it more, more in a more mature way. Because before I would, I would recall sometimes that I will really be upset if I don't get invited to certain spaces. In every Senate sessions and Congress sessions, the CSOs would always be called last and only be given the chance to speak about for maybe 5 minutes, while the rest of the national government agencies got the whole time to yap about many other things. What we do about it is that I just go with it, but maybe the most effective with that is I just borrow legitimacy and credibility from where I can. And that's the value of affiliating your organization with groups like Right to Know, which is of course the broadest RTI advocacy group in the Philippines, but also with folks from the FOI-PMO. I would share a very recent experience that has caused me a great stress in lobbying for FOI at the local level. Among the LGUs that I mentioned earlier, I won't specify which one. They won't really hear us out. Come the time of our public hearing, the sponsor is there, the civil society members of the city were there present. But because the sponsor, the author, is not affiliated with the admin, with the city mayor and then the city administration, there was a deliberate attempt to exclude members of the council from that meeting. And the public consultation went on. So to be fair with our sponsor, he has really fought that animosity from his colleagues. Then later, this is where affiliation works, because we posted it in our page, but also it got posted in the Facebook account of FY Philippines, and it was mentioned that it's an attached office to the Presidential Communications Office. And therefore, when the city mayor has found out that our friends from the PCOS come, friends from Malacanang, as much as we don't want relationship currency to do all the heavy lifting for our reforms to move forward, sometimes we have to accept that CSOs would be the bridge for change to happen. And if I feel small along the process because I don't have that political power, I don't really mind. It's one of the list of my concerns. But yeah, sometimes it will still get me, being disinvited, getting your affiliation and your organization wrong. Those are the small details that get to me because I worked in the advocacy for as long as I can remember. But yeah, I guess as CSOs, we have to bite the bullet.
Ayan. So, thanks for the question, Brian. No? Brian is my org mate, so we work together in Good Gov PH. And his question is our perpetual lament and struggle, no? Especially with lobbying work. But at least for everyone's context, the way we do it with Good Gov PH is really follow the 4-pillar approach. So you can't do anything in these spaces if you're alone. So we really strive hard to mobilize and organize young people to, take part and really collect their perspectives. And us as, the leaders of the organization, the volunteers, we strive hard really to translate those perspectives into, let's say, projects that can be tangible and people can see it, or knowledge products that could help inform decision makers. When we started out Good Gov PH during from 2019, I guess, towards the early parts of the pandemic, nobody really cared about everything we said because we were just a bunch of undergrads and fresh graduate students who were still very much beginners in these policy spaces. But we never really used that as a barrier. We continued trying to get into these spaces until we were loud enough that some people would actually hear us, and loud enough that some other much older organizations, much more established civil society organizations, for example, or development institutions, would give us a chance to take platforms when they do have these bigger events where decision makers actually listened. And so I believe, for example, UNODC, EU, for example, gave us these platforms. A lot of civil society organizations in the Philippines gave us these platforms until eventually, FOI-PMO, for example, during the pandemic, worked with us in piloting the Seal of Good Youth Governance program in Laguna. And that actually helped us get good engagements with the provincial government because we were backed by these big, established institutions. But that doesn't mean that we should be over-dependent, with these institutions. And so what we're doing now is really we're fostering that culture where we really want to develop the expertise of young people and use that in a way, or guide our youth volunteers here, for example, use their expertise so that their perspectives and expertise and skills could be translated into things that matter during spaces where decision makers are there. So for example, Brian has been participating a lot in like budget hearings, for example. A lot of our youth volunteers have been participating in local ordinance hearings. So when we go there, we don't just say that we're just a young person here. We actually carry this whole movement, this whole community. And of course, we also have the credentials to really show them that no, we're not just young people making noise. We're here with informed voices that want to pursue these policies. So it's not perfect. Not everyone listens to us, but we were able to establish that kind of reputation, at least because of the help of all these people.
Well, from the Right to Know Right Now coalition, what has worked, and I think it is something that should work for everyone, one is to show government agencies and politicians in particular that you deliver a consistent pattern of good work, meaning whether these are reports or face-to-face meetings, etc. Second, I think that you are always dealing with them straight, candid, but also polite. I mean, I think the FOI-PMO knows the work that we do. No? We work harder than them if we must to show that we're diligent, that we're methodical, that we're actually as concerned about the same issues as they are. Third, I think what's important is actually to always remember that trust building is also one between, if you're a journalist, sources and reporter. And you remember to say thank you. You remember to say happy birthday when it's their birthday. This is not, something that you should be doing all the time. You don't greet everyone happy birthday every day. But you remember the important dates. And I think it's that pattern of goodwill that you build is something that would actually be your ticket to a seat at the table. Not because you're young, not because you're senior, but because people will listen to you because they know that you're consistently good in the work that you do, that you're honest and you deal with them straight, even if it hurts a little, to tell them that, you didn't do well here. But very polite manner should be important. Okay?
Thank you so much, speaker. So I think we have so many takeaways for this session. One is also perhaps coinciding the public officer's interests with right to information by making a connection between it and public service delivery. And also the youth angle is very illuminating. We have youth politicians, and a lot of times people don't demand a lot of transparency from them because they don't know that they manage such a large portfolio as well. And thank you to GoodGov PH for showing us that, and also that they are our partners also for demanding transparency and also the right to information. So this session is about also asking, do we really have influence? And I think I can relate this back to what Annika said when she opened this event, that 2 years ago, the people were pessimistic, partners were pessimistic about whether this bill will have any momentum at all. And today, after more than 30 years, for the first time ever, we've gone so far. But as she mentioned also, it's no reason to celebrate, and this is why we are here now. We're really pushing things to the last, part of the race. So now, thank you so much, speakers. Oh, and there's another question.
Oh, nga eh. Just a quick question, because earlier we were talking about political resistance. But what if it comes from the bureaucracy itself, from non-elective officials? Because that was also the case when we were trying to push for certain open government reforms at the local government level. We wanted to open up all of these dashboards, wanted to make their data more transparent, involve more people into the, for example, the local budgeting process. But then again, even though their local chief executives were supportive of their initiatives, the resistance apparently came not from the elective officials, but from their non-elective, their appointive bureaucrats at the local level. I'm not sure if this is also the case when it comes to the implementation of FOI practice based on the FOI-EO, because I think though the PCO has been very supportive, we can all attest to that, but there have been concerns from other departments on how it can be implemented. I think we can elaborate on that. How do we navigate that kind of situation?
I think the FOI-PMO, that we have a problem with some of the ancient memorandum circular, circa Ferdinand Marcos Sr., no? Like MC 76, is that? Classification of documents. Most government agencies go by the classification, secret, top secret, confidential. So every document is somehow stamped by force of habit in government agencies. You'd be surprised that even news clippings are stamped secret or high confidential. I think that memorandum circular should really go and be invalidated by an FOI law. But until that happens, you have this pattern of career service personnel going by habit or strictures. The other point is, I think the fear factor is really there. They worry that if they give you the document or the information, they will be in trouble, either suspended or dismissed. Remember that we don't have a problem so much with career service personnel. They're among the best sources of information that you could have. They have institutional memory, they're like a library or a data bank of data. But they are worried that the political boss will not be friendly to them if they release documents without permission. So the decision maker ultimately under EO2 is the politician. And I think that's one of the hurdles. The decision maker is also somehow running for election or re-election every 3 years. The other point is also, I think the problem is you don't have a whistleblower protection law at this time. Why would you release a document that could bring you to trouble? And all the major corruption cases that had been uncovered, look at the people who went to jail. The chief of staff, the director of a bureau, but not the politicians. So I think there's a disparity in, the risks you face if you become honest and open in government. And I don't begrudge civil service personnel for that. They're very good. They actually know that they have to share data with the public, but not all our politicians.
Well, to that point, that's why it means to me that the FOI is not just policy, but it's a culture. It's something that comes from an inherent belief that this should work because it's supposed to make your jobs easier. But I feel like I would be on the more empathetic side of the equation because when reticence happen, it's not usually the case that they don't believe in access to information. Sometimes it's a lot bigger than that. What Ms. Malu said, but also maybe because they just don't have the capacity. And I would reflect back to the earlier days of the executive order. So many times that you would observe from the data that the delivery of the documents to be requested were quite longer than it is now. So bumaba, the average number of the successful delivery of the FOI request has been shortened relatively from the past. It's basically because there are building blocks to the reform and the process. So in principle, it's just as simple as if one specific data has already been requested, for example, to the SWD, they won't really have to generate the same thing over for the second time. Maybe they would just custom fit it, for the next time it will be requested. But that's the importance really of building practice from within, such that you train also the personnel to keep up with the demands. And that's why Also to briefly answer to and connect it to your earlier question about how willing they are to engage us. Sometimes I don't force it when it comes to the local government units. If I have a target LGU in mind, because for instance, a big city or some city that I have close connections with, if they don't feel like they want to pass an FOI, I won't force them, because later on in the implementation, it could be quite a problem if they're not ready to implement.
Can I just repeat the problem that we have, the nexus between FOI, EO2, and Data Privacy Act? You know, we're seeing more and more non-disclosure agreement documents being imposed on people who request documents. I'm sure you've tried this, you've been through this experience. The problem that we're seeing is you have your FOI releasing officer in many agencies who is also the data privacy officer. Now, the situation is in an imbalanced way in favor of data privacy, because there's penalty under the Data Privacy Act or even jail terms. The FOI-EO2, just administrative sanction. So where would you go? Well, you will invoke data privacy. Even if this is data, like more and more the FOI manuals, I mean, we've been looking at some, stretch over exceptions. The DNR has added environmental impact assessment, environmental compliance certificates as covered documents under exceptions. It used to be that they're open. Not anymore. So I mean, so it's a moving picture really of progress and regress. It's a moving picture really of openness and opaqueness. And that's why I think we should be all conscious about monitoring, celebrating the progress points, but also raising concern about where the regress points are happening.
Okay, thank you very much, speakers, and thank you so much for the questions. Yeah. Okay. At, okay.
Ano daw pakiramdam nyo sa CSOs?
Okay, thank you so much. And now for session 6, we are going to have our second activity for the day, and this will be facilitated by John Hyde. We are going to have a short 15-minute break before the next session. Thank you.
Check one.
Okay, folks, we'll make a quick start. We've just got our good friends working on some technical issues, but because most of this session is group work anyway, rather than fascinating oratory from me at the microphone, and we don't need a record of that, let's make a start on this session regarding local messaging strategy. And I think the previous sessions, particularly the last session, emphasised again and again the importance of local messaging. So if you look in your template, part C is the messaging strategy. And there's just 3 issues that we need to discuss in the group work. Okay, so action planning template. So the 3 areas in the strategy. So again, everybody in this room is passionate about RTI, and we've probably got our pet reason for why we love it, why we want to advocate it. Well, you've got to put all that aside and think of somebody in Boracay or Cebu or Iloilo or Mindanao, the Visayas, wherever, and what's their local messaging. So the previous work we did this morning, we looked at the target areas in the terms of the LGUs. So put on your hat, costume, coconut fibre shirt. What was somebody trying to sell me last night? Don't know if it was mango fibre or it was a funny fruit shirt I'd never heard of. It might have been a scam, but it sounded interesting. So you're putting on your local hat and then transfer that into messaging. So, and the key thing, the messaging's, it could be the greatest hashtag in the world, but if it doesn't relate to to local people or to a local issue, it's useless. So, and I know some of you came up with 10, 15, 30 LGU priority areas. If for this exercise we only concentrate on maybe 3, or separately you're looking at your own 3. And first of all, identify what are the 3 local governance issues in your targeted LGU. And then your messaging has got to come from, how does RTI address this issue? It's something, I always have arguments with climate change people and advocates who are passionate about their areas, and it's the most important thing in the world. Well, that doesn't matter unless you can put that into language of local people. So how does the local community benefit from RTI? So what's that governance issue that's happening in the local area? It could be a massive waste disposal problem. There's stench, there's disease from animals, there's cancer impost, whatever. Okay, so how does RTI address that problem? Okay, so identify from your LGU area the governance areas. How does RTI address the issues? But then look at what could be objections and how are you going to counter them. So it might be people who have been unemployed, and the only job they've been able to get is working at the rubbish disposal site. So if through RTI you're actually able to get the true medical records and cancer rates that back up what local people have been saying, but if that means somebody's going to lose their job, how do you address that issue? Okay, so it's not just a simple exercise, but probably with 30 to 35 minutes working in groups. So as each of the groups comes back with local messaging strategy? Any queries, objections? No? Okay. The floor is yours. The group talk. Probably the groups you were in before lunch session will work best.
The questions were actually very good.
Yeah.
You can just take whatever, as long as something submitted to answer response rate. I think the boss wants to evaluate me.
It's the PNG delegation, just to say that they already got their visas and their postings. Yeah. So no more quality. Oh, I don't know. I think it's the same. It's Josephine and Jeffrey.
Those guys, they got actual junkets. So they get DSA from the UN. If we pay these funds, they get DSA from the US. They get double dose.
Oh, okay. That's allowed.
No, they just don't declare it. They get double dose. In the Pacific, it's very common. Very common. I feel Dean Carey's survey too. Relationship. I was brutally honest. Like, I wouldn't even hire them. I mean, OOMBS, I said. I wouldn't hire OOP as a consultant of what it needs. I'm like, there are better people out there. So Norway now wants to consult with Norway's had enough of all the different agreements, and so they want to use advocacy. And then you have to like dig up that pie. So there's a lot of different people. I think so it's all everybody goes into one pot, and then you carve it out. And so the anti-corruption team is trying to carve it out, but don't necessarily want to carve it out for others. I only know that we don't get anything staff-wise from it. Do activities. And we will do activities if they're in our interest and if they really want to do them. But Portree was asked if she could do an activity this year, but she has 15 coming up. Yeah, and so I said, well, Lena is just maxed out. And then she said, I'd like to do next year. And then his mother said, it has to be this year. And then she was like, I hope it's okay. I was really happy you said no. I mean, I wanted her to say no. I could have said no, but I wanted her to say no. Because, and then for me to say, of course, I 100% support you. Your decision, but like, you have to say no. It's not even about funding, like funding. No.
Okay, folks. And I think Luzon table has the most smiles. So they're eager to go first. So, Luzon, north and south. You probably need a... That was a microphone, but it's something else.
Yes.
Ito, ano. Ganda yung input. So, hello, good afternoon everyone. So, sa amin po, yung unang nakita namin sa top 3 local government issues in our area is related pa rin po about sa mga ghost project and flood control. Let's just say, for example, sa province of Cavite, meron kaming mga coastal areas na taon-taong binabaha. Siguro some of you is lagi nyo namang nakikita yung donation drive ng Cavite. Almost every year, pagdating ng October, November, lagi na lang binabaha. Pero yung mga areas na yun is walang flood control projects. Kasi yung patch solution sa mga coastal areas sa Cavite is, let's just say na yung drainage system within ng late 90s, yung drainage system nila is yung parang estero lang sa gilid na parang box na dinadaluyan lang ng tubig going kung saan man siya mapupunta. Then by 2000s, naging ganito yung solution sa Cavite. Sorry po, circles lang siya. Pero imagine niyo na lang na yung mga nakikita nyo sa gilid ng kalsada na drainage na from small, tapos every 2 to 3 years, pinapalitan nila yun kahit hindi pa nasisira. Kasi ang sinasabi nila, maliit lang naman yung tinataas ng baha. So kung lalakihan yung drainage sa ilalim, makukuha ng yung tubig na tinataas, pwedeng pumunta sa baba, hindi na babahain. Pero hindi po yun. Pero recently, nung na-discover yung mga flood controls project, nakakagulat kasi merong flood control sa highland ng Cavite, which is yun po yung parang part ng mga bundok-bundok sa Cavite. For example, Silang. Meron silang flood control project, pero hindi naman po sila binabaha. Parang ganun. So, pag pinasok natin dito yung RTI, ito po yung sagot na isa sa amin. Kung hindi siya controversial, pwede siyang maging ganito, avoiding issues to becoming hearsay only because there are proofs na kumbaga parang tama talaga kung saan napunta or na-utilize talaga na maayos yung budget. Then, yung sa isa naman po is, yung sa isa naman po, ang pinaka-context niya is parang, kumbaga yung sa planning ng mga solution for those issues is magiging mas maayos kasi yun kagaya nung kaninang sinagot namin na pwede siyang ipasok sa networking. Kumbaga magtatanong or lalapit sa other LGUs na nakapag-solve na ng problem na yun para maaring makahingi ng konting suggestion kung ano ba yung mga dapat na project na i-implement para hindi lang patch solution yung binibigay pero pang matagalan. Kasi for me, kung ang mga magkakaroon ng transparency, kahit gaano kamahal yung budget na ilaan sa isang project, kung magiging better naman siya for the long run, hindi naman din magtatanong yung mga tao kasi mararamdaman nila yung pagbabago. Hindi kagaya nung parang every year na lang may project, pero every year hindi naman nababago yung yung pangyayari. Then doon naman po sa potential objections and responses po. Yun nga po, yung una, kung kunyari, meron talagang magandang project, pero kagaya nga 'di ba nung nabalitaan din natin recently na pwede tayong, sa Pilipinas, pwede tayong mag-try nung parang sa BGC na style ng pag-flood control nila na nasa ilalim merong malaking parang bunker na pwedeng pag-store ng tubig. Tapos kapag bumaba na yung tubig sa mga coastal area, pwedeng dun i-release yung water na na-collect nung Kaso nga lang, yung mga ganong project is malaki yung budget. Sa history natin, kung ang mga tao makikita nila sobrang laki ng budget sa project na yun, unang isipin kagad is may corruption kagad. Pero kung magkakaroon ng RTI, kumbaga may explain naman kung bakit ganun kamahal. So yung mga tao, kapag nakikita nila na okay, maganda naman pala yung so hindi na sila magrereklamo at some point. Ang gagawin na lang nila, babantayan na lang nila kung talaga bang napapatupad, kung ano man yung plinano. Yun lang po.
Hello everyone. So, napili po namin na city na ma-discuss yung local governance issues ay yung Pasig City. So, number 1 is yung na find out namin na yung Pasig City ay walang CSO governance, walang People's Council and tawag dito. Number 2 naman is there's no public service delivery or yung issue din kasi sa Pasig City yung traffic, yung waste and all. And then number 4 is no land use maps na napoprovide sa mga citizens which na-find out din namin na ito ay isa sa mga most requested in Pasig. So how does the RTI addresses this issue? As for the People's Council, yung RTI, kumbaga, makakatulong ito na magkaroon ng access yung mga citizens nila regarding sa procurement, local processes na kinakailangan ng kanilang citizens. And pangalawa naman, dun sa public service delivery, bale magkakaroon ng parang feedback hub, if I'm right. Oo, kasi magkaroon ng grievance mechanism sa mga reklamo na nire-raise ng mga citizens ng Pasig. And sa pang-apat naman is magkaroon ng access yung citizens nila sa land use maps na para lang makita na they have like, anong tawag doon? Yung sa land use planning. Oo. Yung sa land use.
They could participate to sa decisions about land use.
Oo. So, ayun po. So, para magkaroon din ng opinions from the citizens or kung magkaroon man din ng suggestions yung mga citizens nila regarding dun sa land use planning na maipoprovide ng Pasig. So, yun lang po.
Okay. Very good. Number 3, go to the Great South.
So for us, we don't have a specific LGU, but I think it speaks on the area, most especially on Western Visayas, since most of what we identified are municipalities and cities in Western Visayas and a part of Central, which is Cebu, and also Negros, and some in Mindanao. But according, at least in one of our researches then, the first problem or local governance issue is data repository. So it exists, data repositories exist, but are siloed, fragmented, and non-interoperable, resulting in redundancies in data collection, poor data quality, and uneven data access. So for example, we have found out na in addressing, for example, some municipalities in Iloilo province, they have ample data, enough data when it comes to cases of cases of VAUSI, teenage pregnancy. But ang problem is, some offices have the data, but most of the time they are redundant, number one. Number two, several of which are also missing, not updated. So the problem is really about how can you make the whole repository of data, the whole data available in each of the LGUs, centralized, efficient, and also interoperable. No, that it will not benefit one office, but the whole, all of the offices of the LGU in general. Number two, tokenistic CSO participation, lack of genuine civil society participation, and merit-based selection. So, at least in the municipalities that we have identified, there's CSO participation. That's a great development, but it's always tokenistic, and it's not really at most of the time very open to a lot of CSO organizations. So there's also a political component na, for example, there are some CSOs that have connection with certain politicians who can only access the data that's available. And then if you are close to the councilor, to the mayor, or to the existing politician, you can have much more space in political participation than the others. So number three, lack of job opportunities within LGUs, rooting from weak industries. So that's also, I think, not only applies to this, kasi most of the provincial areas don't really have enough investment to generate jobs. So how does RTI address these following issues? I think on the first one, in the data repositories, and I think it will also address the tokenistic CSO participation. The RTI will increase public trust for local opportunities, plus regain trust in governance in response to selective aid distribution and other governance issues, or whether when it comes to availability of jobs, Because if you have a centralized data that's very open, very available, and interoperable, it will give citizens the enough knowledge and enough information and enough, they will be empowered enough to really respond to the issues that they are facing within their community. So for example, for jobs, no, they know what opportunities are available for them when it comes to, of course, addressing issues, yung binanggit ko nga kanina, when it comes to addressing violence against women and children. We can pinpoint which among the areas in different LGUs have concentration of, VAUSI incidents, or which among the LGUs in Iloilo have high incidence of teenage pregnancy. For CSOs, it will be clear for them which areas should be prioritized in addressing these issues. Number two, I think this is connected, no? Evidence-based action plans specific to local investment opportunities. So again, if you have enough data, employment data, industry, what are the available industries in the area, the LGU could plan more effectively on how they can strategize or how they can build up their local industries and investment that will give opportunities for their citizens. And last but not the least, I think this is a general impact of the RTI, and I would just like to comment on that on our previous discussion on how we can much more customize the resolutions or the push for LGUs to push for RTI legislation. The RTI is a cross-cutting measure, no? So it will spill over to other issues of the local government. We call it cross-cutting measure because we think that, how would I say this? When it comes to RTI, no, it's important to highlight that the RTI will not only solve the issue of open data and governance just for itself, just for the sake of being open, but having that kind of open, having that structure or infrastructure of data information being available to everyone, it will spill over to other issues. Like, gaya nga na nabanggit ko, it can give opportunity for employment. It can also address the issue when it comes to addressing women and children protection. So that's why, for example, one specific concrete discussion that we had, whenever we lobby, for example, whether that's ordinance or, for example, kanina, we're trying to build a local resolution. I think it will be better for us yung mga customized whereas clauses natin. Yung mga other issues, local governance issues, being faced by the local governments can also be included. So for example, whereas Municipality A is currently proactive in addressing issues related to violence against women and children, the RTI will, because of the interoperability of the RTI, it can provide a lot of information about incidents, etc., etc. So in a way, it will have a kind of imagery that if we try to surface those unique local governance issues, the RTI will have a nuanced response na hindi lang siya na parang streamline. All local government units will have an open data or open information, but if we open the data or if we have an efficient information repository, it will really solve a lot of, perennial governance issues that are unique to each LGU. So in this case, it will strengthen the case for RTI at the local level because even though it's general, it's unique when it comes to this, to its response, and when it comes to what it wants to address in that specific area. So that's why it's cost-cutting. So potential objections, just two. Number one, and I think we are all aware of this, political weaponization, because that's the usual, yung mga pangamba ng mga LGUs is if the data will be open, it can be used against them. So how would we be able to assure that that won't be the case? Number two, and this is also one thing that we also, at least in our experiences, capabilities to implement the RTI law, no? Whether that's financial, infrastructure, and most importantly, capacity of local government stakeholders in implementing the RTI. So that's it for us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, so within the three groups, we had a lot of diverse approaches and answers. So if our three rapporteurs can meld that all together at some point, and we can get a good overview of the local solutions in terms of the messaging. That's been really powerful work, I think, you've done today, and feeding off each other in both of the group sessions. So we'll have a couple more of those tomorrow, and we're on an efficiency dividend finishing early, so I'll now hand over to MC Kirby.
Thank you so much, John. As mentioned, we accomplished a lot today. And first we determined... Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. First we determined where we are now with the RTI bill, and also we heard so many examples of how we can mobilize LGUs to push for the RTI bill. And also we had activities today from prioritizing which LGUs to target, reviewing the model resolution, and also developing key messaging when we approach these LGUs. So now I would like to thank all of you. And before we close, I would like to invite the FOI-PMO to and the speakers also to distribute tokens of appreciation. Oh, speakers, please. Yeah. And John and Annika. Yes. Thank you so much. And if you are posting on social media, please do not forget our hashtag RTINowPH. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Everybody also gets collateral materials from OGP.
na para makialam at mamulat.
And please bring your packets tomorrow of materials. And tomorrow we will complete our action plans.
Sa ating gobyerno para sa ating kapakanan. Simulan ng tunay na kalayaan sa freedom of information ng taong bayan. Dapat walang sikreto sa bansang demokratiko. Kailangan transparent at managot ang gobyerno. Impormasyon ay kailangan natin upang maitama ang mali. Kapag tayo'y may alam, makatutulong tayo sa pagpapatakbo ng lupaing hinirang. Kaya tayo na at makialam at mamulat. Walang karapat dapat na mabuhay ng walang pagkakaalam sa kanyang bayan. Freedom of information pamana sa henerasyon. Halina't makialam at mamulat. Halina't sumali sa mga isyong pambayan. Taglay natin ang karapatan sa kaalaman. Alamin ang totoong pangyayari sa ating gobyerno para sa ating kapakanan. Simulan ng tunay na kalayaan sa freedom of information ng taong bayan. Taglay natin ang karapatan sa kaalaman. Ang totoong pangyayari sa ating gobyerno para sa ating kapakanan. Simulan ng tunay na kalayaan sa freedom of information ng taong bayan.
I-click mo, share mo, dapat alam mo. Impormasyon na kumakalat, dapat totoo. I-click mo, share mo, dapat alam mo. Sa FOI tayo.
Dapat alam mo.
Lagay ng kalikasan dahil nandyan ang kabuhayan.
Dapat alam mo.
Bakit nagbabago ang klima? Baka may malaking problema.
Dapat alam mo.
Ang tungkol sa pollution dito sa bansa, anong solusyon?
Dapat alam mo.
Kung paano makikiayon, ibahagi ang impormasyon.
I-share ang totoo, ipaalam sa mundo. Kalikasan ay buhay, dito nakasalalay. FOI, FOI, handa sa ating gumabay. I-share ang totoo, doon lang tayo sa legito. Para sure tayo, iwas sa fake news. Sa FOI tayo, may karapatan ka dito.
I-click mo, share mo, dapat alam mo. Impormasyon na kumakalat, dapat totoo. I-click mo, share mo, dapat alam mo. Sa FOI tayo. May karapatan kang malaman, may karapatan kang lumaban, may karapatan kang maging boses, pati mga kabataan.
Kaya dapat alam mo. Kaya dapat alam mo. Kaya dapat alam mo.